Number 10, Grisham's Bauble. It was October 1st, 2019 at the nation's capital, and the Washington Nationals were taking on the Milwaukee Brewers in a winner-take-all wildcard game. The winner moves on to the division series, and the loser goes home. The Brewers had a 3-1 lead moving into the bottom of the 8th inning and brought in their elite all-star closer Josh Hader to get the final 6 outs. He promptly struck out the first 2 batters, but then a hit by pitch, a bloop single, and a walk loaded the bases. Playing right field for Milwaukee was rookie Trent Grisham, and at the plate was Juan Soto.
Bases loaded, 1 ball, 1 strike.
Line drive, base hit to right. That'll score 1, that'll score 2 as the ball gets away from Grisham and right. That's going to score 3 runs, and the Washington Nationals have the lead.
Even if Grisham fielded it cleanly, the Nats may have tied the game, but this error allowed the go-ahead run to score. The Nationals went on to win the game and later, the World Series. Number 9, the AJ play. It was one of the most bizarre and desperate plays in MLB history, and somehow it worked. It happened during the 2005 American League Championship Series between the White Sox and the Angels. White Sox catcher A.J. Pierzynski was at the plate in a tie game with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning.
Escobar, another strikeout. Pierzynski is going down to first. The home plate umpire has now made a call and safe, and the Angels are already off the field.
Kelvin Escobar struck him out to move the game into extra innings until A.J. decided he would just take first base anyway, and somehow nobody stopped him. Although catcher Josh Paul clearly caught the ball, he didn't tag out A.J. after the strikeout just to be sure. Then he didn't throw the ball to first when A.J. took off, and this allowed umpire Doug Eddings, who had already called A.J. out, to confusingly call him safe. This was before instant replay, and the Angels could do nothing about it but continue the inning. And of course, the White Sox capitalized with a stolen base and a drive off the wall to bring home the winning run. It's difficult to blame Paul here since he did catch the ball. A.J. was called out, hence there was no need to tag him or throw to first. But in the end, it's an important lesson. Never trust the umpires. Number 8, he don't want to walk you. In another crazy situation, elite relief pitcher for the Padres, Goose Gossage, was on the mound during Game 5 of the 1984 World Series. The Detroit Tigers had a slim 1-run lead with a chance to break it open, with Kirk Gibson at the plate and 2 men on. Gibson had already gone deep once, and with the open base at first, manager Dick Williams called for the intentional walk, the obvious move. But Gossage, who was reportedly bragging before the game that he owned Gibson, was not having it. As he was trying to convince his manager to let him pitch to Gibson, Tigers manager Sparky Anderson let his hitter know.
"We don't want to walk you. We don't want to walk you."
Finally, Dick Williams relented and allowed the overly confident Goose Gossage to face Gibson, and here's what happened.
They give Gibson the left field foul line. Brown is in left. And there it goes!
It had to be one of the most embarrassing moments in MLB history, and even though the Tigers probably would have won the World Series anyway, a massive and regrettable gaffe by the quickly humbled Goose Gossage. Number 7, Lonnie gets deeked. The next highlight comes right out of perhaps the greatest World Series of all time, the 1991 Fall Classic between the Braves and the Twins, 2 teams that finished in dead last the season before. In Game 7, John Smoltz of the Braves and Jack Morris of the Twins were amidst a pitching duel for the ages as the game continued on, tied 0-0 into the top of the 8th. Lonnie Smith, who was having a tremendous series offensively, led off with a single. Then Terry Pendleton stepped up to try to drive him in.
Pendleton into left center field. That ball is down and a bad, well, it's off the wall. Lonnie Smith is held up at third and he didn't do very good base running.
It seems that Lonnie Smith lost track of the ball and was deked by Chuck Knobloch, who was faking a throw into second. Smith stops, bounces around for a while, and this makes it impossible for him to score. Had he run the entire way, even if he slowed down slightly, he still would have been able to easily score. The game eventually went into extra innings, meaning had he scored, the Braves would have won that World Series. Instead, the Twins won it in the 10th, and the Atlanta Braves, the team of the 90s, would have to wait until the shortened 1995 season to finally win their one title of the decade. Number 6, Mickey's passed ball. He was one of the most solid and reliable catchers in the game. Mickey Owen of the Brooklyn Dodgers set a record for consecutive putouts without committing an error. His Dodgers were leading the Yankees 4-3 in Game 4 of the 1941 World Series. It was the 9th inning. There was 2 outs when Dodger pitcher Hugh Casey struck out the 3rd batter, except Owen missed the ball.
Pitcher starting his windup out there again. He's all ready now. Watch it. Here it comes. He fouled the ball. He swung at the ball and missed it. The ball gets away from the catcher, and Henrik goes to first. And now let's see whether the umpire is going to decide he fouled it or whether it was a clean strike. The umpire says that Henrik swung. It was a clean strike. The ball got away from the catcher, and so Henrik is entitled to first because he got there ahead of the throw.
The ball went to the backstop, allowing the game to continue, and as fate would have it, the Dodgers completely fell apart, with the Yankees scoring 4 runs, going on to win the game and the World Series. Mickey Owen, despite a phenomenal career, is mostly remembered for this critical error that may have lost the Dodgers the World Series. Number 5, the Snodgrass Muff. Coming in at number 5 is the story of center fielder Fred Snodgrass, a player who had a solid MLB career mostly with the New York Giants. He was a key member of their 1912 squad who won 103 games and were facing the Red Sox in the World Series. This was the final winner-take-all game, and it was tied at 1 going into extra innings when Fred Merkel, more on him later, drove in the go-ahead run in the top of the 10th. Christy Mathewson, one of the greatest pitchers in baseball at the time, came out for the 10th to finish off the Red Sox and bring a championship to New York. Pinch hitter Clyde Engel led off with a routine fly ball towards right center. Snodgrass called off the right fielder Red Murray, even though the ball looked to be further towards right field. Then he dropped the ball. It was a critical 2-base error, and despite making an amazing catch later that inning, Engel eventually scored to tie the game. Mathewson and the Giants collectively fell apart, and the Red Sox won the World Series. Although there were multiple mistakes that inning, Snodgrass made the error that propelled the Red Sox that inning and will always be famous for the Snodgrass Muff. Number 4, the Gonzalez Error. Although diehard Cubs fan Steve Bartman was the scapegoat for the Cubs' meltdown against the Marlins in the 8th inning of the 2005 National League Championship Series, the truth is the players themselves did about everything they could to blow this ball game. Furthermore, if Moises Alou didn't throw a temper tantrum after failing to catch the foul ball, it wouldn't have occurred to anyone to blame a fan for what happened. It would have just been another foul ball out of the reach of the fielder into the seats. A player probably would have been blamed for that meltdown, and it probably would have been Alex Gonzalez. The situation was this. The Cubs were up 3-1 with 1 out in the 8th, well on their way to the World Series. There was a foul pop fly into the seats. Alou leaped for it, couldn't get it, and at the end of the day, it was just a foul ball. Later, the Marlins' Jose Cabrera hit a routine ground ball to shortstop that could have been a double play to end the inning. It was a routine play that was booted, undeniably booted by a major league player who was paid millions of dollars to make that play, yet somehow a fan who reached up for a foul ball got all the blame for that loss. The Marlins went on to score 8 runs in the inning. 8 runs were scored on multiple hits, walks, errors, yet Bartman got all the blame. Even if Alou caught that ball, there would have still been just 2 outs, and based on how things played out, the Marlins may have scored a bunch of runs anyway. Regardless, the Chicago Cubs themselves blew that game, not a fan who tried to catch a foul ball. And it was the error by Alex Gonzalez that really started the unraveling. Had he made that play, the inning would have ended, and the Cubs likely would have gone on to win the game and go to the World Series. Number 3, the Babe gets caught. Coming in at number 3 is the Sultan of SWAT. Yes, even the Babe screwed up big time. He made an absolutely horrific decision that has been largely forgotten about because, well, this is Babe Ruth, Plus, it was almost 100 years ago, but it took several world titles and being the undisputed greatest of all time to make Yankee fans forgive this blunder. It was Game 7 of the 1926 World Series. The winner takes home the ring. The Cardinals were leading Babe Ruth's Yankees 3-2 in the bottom of the ninth inning with 2 outs and only needed 1 more out to begin the celebration. However, it was Babe Ruth at the plate who could tie the game with 1 swing of the bat. For obvious reasons, he didn't get anything good to hit and ended up walking, meaning the Babe represented the tying run. Up stepped Bob Musial, a powerful hitter who led the league in home runs and RBI the season prior, and had just hit a double and triple against this same relief pitcher the day before. However, Babe Ruth took off for second on his own and was thrown out by a mile in what had to be one of the most furious ways to end a World Series in the history of baseball for Yankee fans. Ruth was never a proficient base stealer, and this was an insane gamble that did not come close to paying off. The Yankees did win it all in 27 and 28, helping the fans forget the 26 fiasco. But that critical mistake by the Babe has to be on this list, as no one knows what would have happened if Musial would have been able to finish his at-bat. Number 2, it gets through Buckner. It's one of the most remembered blunders in the history of the game, and Buckner may never have been forgiven by Red Sox fans had they not finally won a World Series in 2004, even though it wasn't all his fault anyway. Here was the situation. It was Game 6 of the 1986 World Series at Shea Stadium in New York, and the Red Sox were 3 outs away from bringing a ring to Boston. They led 5-3 over the Mets, and with Calvin Schiraldi, who had a 1.41 ERA that season on the mound, it was practically in the bag. The first 2 outs came quickly and without drama. Bill Buckner, whose knees were shot at this point in his career, normally would have been replaced in the 9th inning with the more sure-handed Dave Stapleton. However, he was left in by manager John McNamara so that he could be on the field when the big moment came. And of course he was. After 3 consecutive singles, Bob Stanley came in to see if he could finish off the Mets. Instead, he threw a wild pitch, one that could have perhaps been called a pass ball, as catcher Rich Gedman could have caught this ball. The game was now tied. Then, Mookie Wilson, in one of the most epic at-bats of all time, kept fighting, fouling off pitch after pitch, until finally he put one in play. Unfortunately, Bill Buckner's life was never the same. It was certainly a critical error, but one that should have never happened, as John McNamara should have switched Buckner out for Stapleton. Also, the pitching absolutely fell apart, and the wild pitch could have been caught. Furthermore, there was even a Game 7, but of course the Mets won that game as well, and Buckner's error went down in history as one of the biggest gaffes of all time. Number 1. Merkel's boner. How could any error top the Buckner play? This is a story that had to be seen to believe, and unfortunately there's no one left who actually saw it, because it was in 1908, and the Giants were taking on the Cubs in a critical game late in the season. Both teams were tied for first, and in those days the winner of the regular season standings goes straight to the World Series. It was a home game for the Giants. Tied up at 1 in the 9th, and Fred Merkel, a 19-year-old making his first major league start, was on first after a single, and the winning run, represented by Moose McCormick, was on third base. The Giants' Al Bridwell was up, and he came through with a base hit to win the game. In comes Moose McCormick to score, and the Giants win it. The fans pour out onto the field to celebrate. The Giants were going crazy, mobbing Al Bridwell for the game-winning hit. But Merkel, who was at first base, never bothered to touch second. After the fans swarmed the field and the celebration began, it didn't seem necessary. However, official rule 5.08a states, a run is not scored if the runner advances to home base during a play in which the third out is made by any runner being forced out. In other words, since Merkel never touched second, the Cubs could still technically force him out by tagging second base, nullifying the run. The Cubs second baseman Johnny Evers grabbed a baseball, perhaps not even the game ball. Some say he just grabbed the nearest ball he could find, stepped on second base, and amazingly, the umpire Hank O'Day, after consulting with the other umpire, called Merkel out. The run did not count. The game was not over despite the sun going down and now angry fans having already rushed the field. They never could finish the game that day. It was called. And the Giants and Cubs ended the season tied for first place and had to replay that tied game. The Cubs won the rematch 4-2, went on to win the World Series, which of course began the Merkel curse, which lasted 108 years until the Cubs finally won another World Series in 2016. And there you have it, the 10 worst blunders in MLB history. There have been so many more, certainly, that I've missed. Feel free to put them in that comment section down below and let me know what you think about these blunders that I spoke about today. Thank you so much for watching.